Si de comedias románticas se trata, 500 días con ella es una de las referentes. Hablé con Laura Fox, su diseñadora de producción, sobre cuáles fueron las influencias desde lo arquitectónico, que tiene un rol muy importante, sobre todo para Tom, hasta una mención a Woody Allen, y por supuesto también tratamos de definir quién de los dos tiene razón. En este sentido, terminamos con un pequeño y cortito debate sobre cómo es el tema vincular, que les recuerdo que pasó algo parecido con la guionista, con Kim Kisan, la guionista de la trilogía de Antes del Amanecer, que les dejo acá arriba para si se quieren dar una vuelta al finalizar este video. También se los dejo al final. Por supuesto, no se olviden de suscribirse y disfruten de esta charla sobre una gran comedia llamada 500 días con ella.
We now return to Mira a Quién and Contré with our latest interview.
It was very collaborative, you know, especially when you're working so small. And Joseph Gordon is super collaborative. We would go over to his house and watch movies beforehand that seemed nothing like our movie at all, but we just found them inspiring, you know. On a night I used to do a lot of music videos, and I worked at this company and I did all these big music videos, and Mark Webb was one of the directors there, and he's the director of 500, and we became really good friends. And so my first appeal, of course, was to work with him. And then nobody wanted me to do the job except for Mark, because everyone's like, oh, she does those big videos, she won't be able to do this independent movie, blah, blah, blah. And so I did this big presentation, which really looks quite a lot like the movie. And it just was like I was in, you know. And then, of course, the story and the acting and the way it came out makes me very proud and happy that people continue to love it. It's so weird.
Everyone, this is Summer, my new assistant. Summer, everyone, Summer.
What about Zoe's eyes? Because I was reading that the color of her eyes like defined the palette of the movie. Is that true?
It's partially true. Well, she's got huge, beautiful blue eyes, as you know. So we said blue would be her color and that it would not appear elsewhere in the movie. And we had other weird rules like no red, because it's such a strong color. If you use it, you have to choose it wisely. And then, so it started with the blue for Zooey. It started with the no red. And then we kind of layered in like the seasons, you know, so that it kind of, the color palette sort of was kind of worn and fall-like when it was fall and all of that sort of stuff. Now, having said that, I will say the night before we shot Zoe's pretty blue apartment, Mark called me up and said, what about if we add a little red? And I said, what about it? And I made a little red origami bird and we hung it on a little plant. And so it was just that kind of, and then once we made all these rules towards the end like that, we'd kind of break them because we're like, but this looks good. So it was fun to start with a bunch of ground rules and then kind of let the work and the whole thing kind of, you know, lead the way. It was her space, creating it for her, and then using more than my work, more Mark and the actor and the camera to tell the two versions of the same imagery. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that was sort of, I just set the stage and they took over and made it work.
The other thing that is like iconic of the film is the bench, where he's sitting and like dreaming of his architecture like career. And I think they removed that bench afterwards. I think it's no longer there.
No longer there. Of course, well, you know, when we were trying to find that perfect place in Los Angeles, schlepping around, looking at this. And I mean, there was some Woody Allen influence there with the bench. I'm not going to deny the famous Woody Allen bench, you know. So in downtown, they had that thing called Angel's Flight, where you could take a little tram down right into it, but it never works. It always breaks down. So we had thought about that was good. But then when we got up on that bench, up on that area, it was like done. The view was perfect. There's City Hall, which is a great piece of architecture. And, it was, and since architecture was one of the elements, it was just like, so it had the Woody Allen, the romance, and the architecture. So it was like.
This is my favorite spot.
This is your favorite spot?
Right here.
Well, I love architecture. And so like, there's little things no one would know. One of my favorite architects is Neutra, very kind of mid-century sort of. And I said, I want him to have Neutras. And so we reached out to the Neutra Foundation and they let us put like on his desk, there's a little framed Neutra blueprint. And of course, the blueprints in his room, in his house. And actually, in a weird way, like originally, I don't know if you remember the big chalkboard behind his bed. That was written that he painted a picture of Zooey, of Summer. And I was like, and it was kind of eating at me because I kept thinking, he's not a painter. He wants to be an architect. And he's doodling around with greeting cards. So I did a small watercolor sort of version of Zooey, and then I did a sort of chalkboard thing with where we could incorporate his architecture skills. And Mark's like, no, let's do the painting. And I go, okay. The next day he comes in, yeah, let's do the chalkboard.
It didn't work.
So in that, and then it became a thing, so then it was the ruler, the chalk, the photographs of buildings, the daily calendar. So that was a big impact. And the fact just that I think if you love architecture and it's a part of you, it influences your thinking and the way you live and the way you look at things. So that was a great character thing that really helped, And then of course the final scene takes place in the Bradbury building, which is one of the most beautiful buildings in LA, architecture wise and history wise, and Blade Runner shot there. And so, so it was definitely there a lot.
Every day you make me proud. But today you get a card.
Shit, that's good.
I know.
How was like thinking of them as an element that you have to like make fun of in a way of that culture?
It was so fun. Well, so, it wasn't a very big budget movie. And we were literally working in a trailer this big, me, my art director, my set decorator, we were all just like crammed in and in a parking lot. It was super glamorous, but not like this. And, you have to have everything so I couldn't afford to like hire a real artist, but we also didn't want them to be that great, but we wanted them to be charming. And I knew I wanted them to be huge in the office and somewhat ridiculous. And so we started looking at all sorts of clip art, which is just doodles online. And then we just started coloring them and writing stupid things, greetings. And then it was so much fun. We couldn't stop. Finally, I said, we have enough. We have to stop now. We need to start printing. So it was just something that my art director and I were just like, this is too fun. And then when I look at my original presentation, I had done one on this big board. And I'm like, that really took off. And I think we all felt like we just want that cartoony, somewhat silly, somewhat just to be a big presence in the office. Like, here's what you should not be doing, And then behind the desk of the boss, we made up, I can't remember what they're called, but we made all these fake gold greeting card awards, like as if there was a Grammy for a greeting card. So we just got in the spirit of it, if that makes sense.
Not really looking for anything serious.
The big argument about this movie is who is right. Is it Tom? Is it Summer? Who is the villain in the movie? What's your idea in the?
That's so funny. I've never even thought of that. I guess you have so much sympathy for Tom, right? So you think she's the villain until the very end when you realize she just never loved him. He just suckered her in. And then you think, you think, I mean, I don't know about you or all the people that know, it really makes you think about past relationships. You're like, oh, wait a minute. I wasn't the villain, or I was the villain, because if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And he just wasn't really willing to see that, So I wouldn't say villain. I would say there's two people with some different ideas,
Yeah.
Also, and I think like you couldn't even consider her a villain because she didn't even know that she really wanted this until she met the right guy. And so I don't think anyone deliberately hurt anyone in the movie. Who do you think? I'm curious.
But the thing is, I think it changed depending on your mindset that day. I think if you are like having a bad breakup, you are going to be like more on the side of Tom. But if
Yeah.
you are the one that left someone because of any reasons, you are going to be more close to Summer, I think.
No, but that's kind of what I'm saying. It really is. We've all had both. I think most people have had both sides of that relationship at some point in their lives, or they will.
Boys